Hello and welcome in to another edition of the PressProsMagazine.com Huddle Show. I'm Bruce Hooley. That gentleman beside me is Lyle Sonny Folks, the editor of PressProsMagazine.com. We're happy to have you with us tonight as we preview Week 7 of the high school football season, talk about Week 6, and visit with Tippecanoe's Matt Burgbacher. Coach Burbacher will be joining us here in a few minutes, and we'll be talking about Tip's game Friday night at Troy, an MVL showdown, and Matt Burgbacher knows both sidelines very well, having coached for 4 seasons at Troy. And now, is he in year 3 at Tip?
This would be year 3. Yes, it would.
Year 3 at Tip. And he has them number 4 in the state in Division 3, coming off their first loss, but it was to a number 4 ranked in Division 2 Xenia Buccaneers team. And Tip gave Xenia all it wanted on Friday night and then some, coming back from a 20-0 deficit to lead 22-20. Before Xenia scored in the waning minutes of the game to pull out a 27-22 win. So we'll have Coach Burbacher with us very, very shortly. What stood out to you from Week 6, Mr. Folks?
I think what stood out to me the most last week was I saw Marion Local, or I saw Versailles in Marion Local play, I should say. And good football teams. And I've watched them for years and years, and people write to us and ask about what makes Marion what they are. You can see from week 1 when they played Wapakoneta, and I was at that game, you can see just the growth of this program in all areas. The quarterback play, Tate Hess, much more at comfort now with the responsibilities in that position than he was starting out. The running back situation there with Kyle Otte and Drew Louse and Darren Meyer, that trio of running backs there that Tim likes to incorporate and use. His offensive line play, tackle to tackle, I'm not sure that that's as strong as what it's been in other years, but you can see it progressively on a weekly basis get better. So, we talk about every year about good programs and how they get better from week to week to week. They are relatively healthy as far as I know. And, I know we got a lot of attention from Northeast and Northwest Ohio from potential schools that might meet Marion in the playoffs in the postseason. So, a lot of people from those parts of the state are now beginning to pay attention on Friday nights and Saturday, both through our minute-to-minute scoreboard and, of course, our column coverage, feature coverage of the games that we cover. And that's what stood out to me this weekend was the number of people for the second week in a row now from Northeast Ohio, Northwest Ohio, even some people from Southeastern Ohio in the Ironton area who are following us now and reading about coverage of Division 5 teams up here, principally, of course, Milton Union, Valley View, and teams like that the Ironton Tigers might see someplace along the line in the playoff. That's what stood out to me is people around the state now have a broader knowledge and a broader scope of teams to be following now. It's what makes this Friday Night Lights a little exciting when you get into the week 7, 8, 9, the potential of who you might play week 11, 12, and 13.
Well, let me run through before we bring Coach Burbacher on the latest OHSAA state football poll. Of course, Marion Local remains number 1 in Division 6, but we have a new team in our area that has ascended to the number 1 ranking, and that is the Coldwater Cavaliers, now atop Division 5. Chip Otten has the Cavs off to a 6-0 record ahead of Ironton in the number 2 spot. In Division 1, the lone unbeaten in the Ohio Capital Conference, Dublin Jerome hangs on at number 5. Jerome is 6-0, going to Marysville on Friday night. Also in Division 5, just a few notches below Coldwater is unbeaten Milton Union. The Bulldogs are there in the number 6 spot. In Division 6, besides Marion Local on top, Versailles is at number 7. And a lot of people might look at Versailles with a 4-2 record and say, what are they doing ranked in the top 10? Well, their losses are to number 1 Marion Local and to number 3 in Division 7 New Bremen. So no disgrace there. So that takes us through, and I did not give you Division 3 because I was saving that in advance of bringing Coach Burbacher on. Tippecanoe is 5-1 on the season. As I said, a big high-character game on Friday night against Xenia where they came back from a 20-0 deficit and got ahead 22-20 before Xenia scored in the final minutes. Tip drops only 1 spot in Division 3 after losing to Xenia, which is tied for number 4 in Division 2. So a lot of respect for Tip, and well-earned respect for Tip. And so with that, let's bring on the head coach of the Red Devils, Matt Burgbacher, whose squad will be taking on the Troy Trojans on Friday night at Troy Memorial Stadium. And I don't think anybody has to tell Matt Burbacher how to get to Troy, Ohio. Matt, you know the way there pretty well.
Well, I do. It's right down the street. So, our bus drivers won't have to be asking for directions on where to park and which locker room we're using or any of that stuff. I put that in an email on Sunday to our parents. I told them every logistic they needed to know about Friday night when they're going to Troy.
Matthew, it's good to have you on tonight. I appreciate you taking the time and sharing and visiting with us tonight. The one thing that struck me the other night, and you and I talked briefly over the weekend about your game with Xenia, and we wrote about this last week about teams that wanted to be tested. And I know that was important to you at this juncture of the season, and explain to the people what I thought we shared pretty well in Greg Billings' column the other night, and what you said to me when I talked to you on Sunday about how you felt your team handled the biggest test of the season so far.
I thought our kids handled it great. Obviously we did not get off to the start we wanted. When you fall down 20-0 to a very, very good football team, you're either in for a long night or you got a big battle ahead of you. And I'll tell you what, our kids fought, battled, you name it, our kids did it. And the one thing that did not waver was their belief in that we could win that game. And, Trayshawn Sanders and Tremel Wright and all those guys, man, they've got athletes all over the place. But I tell you what, our kids just battled. And I loved every last minute of it because, honestly, since Bellbrook, we've had some games that we've won pretty handily. And we knew we had a good team. We just didn't know how good we really were until Friday night. And the last 36 minutes of that game, our kids showed who we are and what we do, what we believe in. And when you have those things, you can win a lot of football games. It doesn't matter who you're going against. If you have all those little intangibles, you can beat anybody. And we almost did. Once we got up 22-20, it was an electric atmosphere. I tell you what, it was one of those games that was just, you had chills the whole game because every play mattered. And the fans were in every play. You make a tackle for a 4-yard gain, our fans are going crazy and our sidelines going nuts. And then, especially there in the third quarter when we made our comeback, we were able to kick the field goal and then got a fumble on the kickoff and were able to score. And then they had an unsportsmanlike penalty. So we went ahead and did an onside kick and got it. And then Jackson kicks a 47-yard field goal to tie it up. And then we pin them down on a punt and we block a punt. We're up 22-20. And I can guarantee you of the 4,000 people that were at that game, there probably were 3,500 people that thought the game was over. When Xenia got up to that 20-0 lead. But I just tell you, the perseverance, the determination, the heart, the belief our kids have is amazing because coming into this season, we thought we were going to have a pretty good team, but we didn't know how good. When you lose 19 of 22 starters, you're replacing a whole lot. And these kids have stepped up and they've done it. And it's been a really fun season. But we're not done yet. By no stretch of the imagination are we satisfied with where we are because we have gotten better every week. And I know you guys were just talking about that. And it's like, you know what? That's the Tip City Red Devils right there. We keep getting better. Our offensive line was very inexperienced at the beginning of the year. They played their best game Friday night against one of the best defenses in the area. And our kids played well. So again, we lost. That's the bottom line. But there's a lot of positives that we can take from this, and we are taking from it.
Matt, was it one of those situations where Xenia is just a really super talented team, and obviously they're ranked in the top 10 in Division 2, a division bigger than Tip, and and they just jumped on you maybe before you guys quite knew what hit them, or how do you account for the 20-0 margin at the beginning? And maybe what can you learn from that? You got Troy this week, big rivalry.
Oh yeah.
Above 500 football team. You got Piqua next week, a once beaten football team. So you'd obviously love to be 6-0, but maybe the lessons that you learn from that one on the right side of your ledger are lessons that can teach your team something for these games coming up this week and next.
Absolutely. And I came across the little saying earlier this weekend. Sometimes not getting what you want leads to getting what we need. And, we may have needed that, not that we were overconfident, because we weren't, but it's to get to where you want to go. Sometimes you have to stumble a little bit, or you have to lose a game. Not that I wanted to lose a game, but I saw a new focus from our kids today at practice. Yeah, we lost. It's not one of those where, doggone it, we lost. We're going to go run 100 100s today just because we lost. Those there's no, we have to fix some little things. And, when you lose, some of that stuff's brought to light. And that's what, has happened to us. I think at the beginning of that game, it's kind of a little feeling out process there, because we knew, we played that same team last year. They didn't graduate hardly anything from last year's team. And we knew, like Sonny said in his article, the ball bounced our way last year.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, when you got a 6 foot, 230-pound running back that runs probably a 4.6, 4.7 40 and carried the ball 34 times, that's a load to tackle every play. When we got a 165-pound nose guard and, 180-pound defensive tackle, he was bigger than anybody we had playing defense. But, it took our kids a little bit of adjustment. And then, in the first, 14 minutes of the game, it was 20-0. Then they didn't score until 51 seconds left in the game. So obviously our kids adjusted to that. Some of the scheme-wise, the speed of the game, it's hard to replicate in practice, because you got our scout team, we got our sophomores running the scout team. Our scout team does a great job. But we just don't have a 6 foot, 230-pound kid that's going to run the ball, run power the way they run power. We don't have guys on our scout team that block like the Xenia kids block. We don't have, a Jamel Smith at defensive tackle that will be in the backfield in less than half a second, tackling our quarterback. We just, you don't have those things. So sometimes it takes a little feeling out process. And I'll be honest with you, that was the biggest game our kids have played in. And they come running out of the tunnel and they see 4,000 people there. That could be a little, awestruck or whatever you want to call it. And I think we had some nerves. I had to get on them in pregame. Usually it's about, we need to get focused. I think we were too focused, and our kids weren't having any fun. They were nervous. They weren't scared, but they were just, a lot of nerves, but it mattered to them. So now we've played in that big game. And now, we've got I know again, we lost, but we've got a new confidence that is not arrogance, not overconfident. We have a new confidence that we can go out and compete with everybody. And, it's one of those feelings that, hey, yeah, we can do that, but we have a lot of areas where we can improve. And that was our focus today, was let's get better at what we do. And when we do that, we're going to be a tough out for anybody.
Matt Burbacher, our guest tonight, the head football coach at Tippecanoe High School down in Tip City, right down the road from where we're sitting now. And I'm going to take a minute to say that tonight's show is brought to you in part by Skynet Rural Internet here in Piqua. Give them a call. If you got sketchy internet, Wi-Fi out in the country, they can help you. Call Craig Grissom at 773-0998. They are a sister company of the Digitech Satellite, which is one of the last actually local dish satellite TV dealers left in West Central Ohio. So if you're out there in the dark tonight and you are having trouble picking up Matt Burbacher on the Monday Night Huddle, you want to give Doug Grissom a call tomorrow at 773-0998. He will call. He will answer the phone personally, and they're right in downtown Piqua. They'll be out to see you on a service call expediently. They do a great job, and we thank them for their support. Matthew, you and I have talked about so many times about culture of football, and I'm going to go back to last year's Xenia game, because it was at Tip City. You won that game, and you were pleased about how you played. And I remember you telling me specifically, going to be different playing that team next year because they've got it going on. They got athletes. But I know you have to be very pleased about culture of football because you just mentioned you got to replace 19 starters on your team, and look at you. You're 5-1, played that team to a 20. You were ahead 22-20 in the last 5 minutes of the game. You had that game within reach. And I know you have to be pleased at how far your kids have come this year and just where that culture that you started with 50 kids in uniform when you took over has come.
Yeah, it takes time. And I told actually last year, I remember before that Xenia game talking to Mo Harden about it. You got to stay true to who you are, because when you can build those relationships and it's not fake, with the kids will do anything for you. And the best recruiters you have for football are your kids, because they go in class, they're in algebra or geometry, and they're talking about football. And that kid that maybe is on the fence, he's thinking, you know what, I'm going to give that a try. And we've got that. We got Stanley Klein playing wide receiver for us. He's a, all league, should be all state basketball player. And he's out playing wide receiver for us. Hasn't played football in a couple years. He wants to be a part of this because, again, I think, the kids, when you treat the kids right, you make it fun. There's all different kinds of things. Our kids want to be here. And that's what's great. It's not like we have to force them, and we don't practice real long. I've changed a lot to where I used to practice forever and just thinking we have to do it. No, we come in and there's a lot of days we're out of here by 5 o'clock. And, for the kids, they appreciate that because they know, our time management, when you're here, we're going to get after it and then we're going to get out. And, but our kids just love being here. And it's obviously a lot of people want to be a part of success. We've had some success, not too many people want to find the solution or fix the problem. But when the problem is fixed, then a lot of more people want to be a part of that. And, not that we had a problem. It's just you got to build your things. And I guess I've been very fortunate being at Laramie and being at Troy and being here at Tip that we've had some really good kids. We've had great parents. We've had great administration. We've got, it takes a little bit of everything to have success. And when you want to build that culture, it's just not about the football team. It's about the cheerleaders. It's about the band. It's about the student body. It's about the parents. When you can get everybody involved, yeah, those people may not have a jersey on Friday night, but they're a part of your program, then it just kind of spreads like wildfire. And that's kind of where we're at right now at Tip. And it's been, when we played a home game up in Sydney, it was crazy how many people went up to Sydney for our home game against Vandalia Butler. Week 1, when we played down at Butler, when we played Bellbrook, the amount of people, granted that was right down the street, but just the support we get around here is absolutely awesome. And it's just, like I said, it takes time, but once you get there, it's kind of even harder to stay there. But, when you get it going, you got more people on board that's helping with that culture.
Matt, I think back on the first time that I met you was right before your first season at Tip. And we came out to one of your practices. We were in the middle of COVID and we didn't even know if we were going to have a season. And, that was a really challenging way to start ingraining your program. I wondered, in your experience at Laramie, Troy, and now Tip, if you found that it takes a year or 2 or maybe 3 to go from having a team to having a program, because, getting kids like great athletes like Stanley Klein come out for football tells me you now have a program.
Yeah, it's, every school's a little bit different. Going up to Laramie, I was, I had a great senior class my first year, and they, were able to make the regional finals that year 1. And, we lose to Marion Local. But a lot of people lose to Marion Local, so I don't feel so bad. But at Troy, it took a full year, to get the, the biggest thing is the expectations. Getting the kids to understand those expectations and then getting the parents to understand those. And here at Tip, it was, the same way, because every coach is different. Every program is different. You can't sit there and say, okay, I'm going to make our program here at Tip just like Tim Goodwin. I'm going to do everything Tim Goodwin does because Tim's had success. Well, you know what? There's only one Tim Goodwin. And there's only one way to do it. There's only one Charlie Burbacher. And there, so yeah, a lot of the stuff I do, is what Dad did, but it's kind of with my own little touch. It's, I've been very fortunate to be around some great head coaches with Bruce Cahill, Charlie Burbacher. I played for Frosty Brown. I played for Don Shawley down at Marietta. I've been around a lot of great coaches. And, the one that I learned a lot from was Carla Siegel. Everybody's like, what, yeah, Carla Siegel's won a couple state titles. She is a phenomenal basketball coach. But you know what? Coaching's coaching. And, the one thing that I saw from Carla is how she teaches the game to the kids and the respect that those kids give back to her because of the respect she gives to them. That was, I'm a big believer in when I go to basketball games, I love watching our kids play basketball, but I'm watching the coaches. I want to see how coaches coach because I want to learn things from them. I love going into our basketball practices. I just sit in the corner and they're like, Coach, you all right? Yeah, I'm just watching. I'm not trying to steal. I'm just trying to, I love doing that stuff. So I go up to the state final games and I'm watching the sidelines more than I am watching the game out there on the field because I want to learn and I want to see how people do it because again, every program's different, every kid's different, every situation's different, every environment. But the one thing that I think you have to do, you got to be true to yourself, but you got to make it as positive as possible because everybody wants to be a part of something positive. Nobody wants to be a part of anything negative. And when everything's negative, like you're going to lose people. But even like Friday night, yes, we lost a game, but you know what? There's so many positives that we can take from it. So instead of focusing on the negative, we're choosing to focus on the positive, and that's going to make us a better football team.
Matt, I think one of the best things about sports, about any season, doesn't matter what the sport is to have meaningful games at the end. I think that's the greatest reward because as well as I do, there's only one team that's a winner on the last day of the season and can. So, and everybody can't be that guy. But, to have meaningful games is the greatest reward and what that means to you and your staff and your kids because you're 5-1 now and you've got meaningful games. Like we just said, Troy this week, Piqua next week. Your destiny is in your hands. That's the greatest thing that you can possibly ask for in competition.
That's what I told the kids the other day. We control what happens to Tip. It's not like we have to go play a game and then go look at the scoreboard
and get help.
Be dependent on somebody else. We're controlling our own destiny here. And there's nothing better than having that control because again, we get to dictate what happens to Tip. Nobody else does. So, it is so much fun having games like this week against Troy. Obviously it's 8:30 at night and I'm still here at school. It's a huge game for us. Next week's a huge game. Even when we finish with Fairborn and Greenville, they're meaningful games because we're playing for something. We're playing for week 11, 12, 13, 14, hopefully 15 and 16. So we're playing for something, not, we're just not playing for pride or that name across our chest. We always do that, but there's more out there for us and our kids want more. And that's something that's really stuck out with this group is they're not satisfied. They want to continue to get better. It's just like today, Liam Peronsky is just sitting there soaking in the scouting report because he wants to know as much as he can about Troy's defense and what we're going to do to attack their defense. And out there on the field, he's asking questions. Does the safety do this? What's he going to do when we do this formation? They're just students of the game and they want to learn. And that's what's fun because again, that's why we do what we do. We don't, it's not like we take Saturday through Thursday off and then boom, hey, it's game day. I'm here. I'm ready to go. No, our best days are Saturday through Thursday because we get to coach and teach our kids and scheme and do all that stuff. But then again, that's where you build those relationships with the kids. And then when you go out there on Friday night and everybody's on the same page, man, that's just icing on the cake.
Yeah, I agree. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Matt, I'm curious. that year, your first year at Tip was such a weird year. We had games canceled everywhere. Did you get to play Troy at Troy? Did that game happen or did that get canceled?
Actually, my first year here at Tip was 2019, so the fall before COVID. So Troy came to Tip that year and beat us 14-7. And then 2020, during the COVID season, we did go to Troy and we pulled that one out in the last minute of the game. Okay. And then last year we played here at our place and we beat them
31-16, I think.
Yeah, 31-16. So
yeah, you've done it 3 times. So is it now not weird, not awkward coaching against a team you used to coach?
No, it's still weird. It's still awkward. You know, the thing is, the kids that are on their team now, most of those kids, you know, they were in 8th grade, 7th grade, 6th grade. But the thing that we got going for us, my son's a junior. So my son played Little League football and junior high, 7th grade football with a lot of these juniors that's on the team. So, you know, Jahari Ward and Devin Strobel, those kids, we you know, they spent the night at our house, you know. So you know those kids, but it's still when you coach somewhere and you leave, you still, a piece of your heart is still there. You know, I had a great 4 years, and you know, Troy's a great football job, great community. You know, it's a football town. Mm-hmm. So the alarm, I did not have to wake up to an alarm this morning. I guess that's what I can say is, you know, the juice is flowing. You know, our kids, you know, for some reason over the last 3 years, the Troy Tip rivalry, even in boys golf, is pretty intense for some reason. So it doesn't matter what sport you're playing. When Tip and Troy's playing, it's going to be a battle. It's going to be, and you can almost just throw the records out because there's, you know, the student sections, you know, are crazy for volleyball games when Tip and Troy plays. It is absolutely awesome. So it's a very, very healthy rivalry. And I think probably me coming to Tip probably contributed a little bit to that. But we got to know that we're going to get Troy's best shot on Friday night, and Troy's going to get our best shot. And it's just going to be one of those games of who's the best team for 48 minutes. And that's what we're focused on.
Matt, appreciate your time. It's always great to have you on here. I know Bruce and I talk about all the time as far as a guy excited to be communicating about his program and letting people know the good news about Tip football. I don't think there's anybody who does it better than you, and we certainly appreciate the chance to visit with you. Good luck.
No, I really appreciate you guys having me on because, again, it's all about the kids, and our kids are doing a great job, and they deserve the recognition. And you know, we just got to finish this season off the right way, and then you know, once the playoffs roll around, then hey, let the chips fall where they may, and let's go play some football. So we appreciate everything you guys do. You guys do a great job, and this is great for high school athletics and the kids. And these are memories they're going to have forever. So you know, that's what we're here for.
Well, we wish you the best and stay healthy.
All right, thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Matt. Have a good week. There you go, Matt Burbacher, the head football coach at Tippecanoe. And they are 5-1 taking on Troy. Troy is 4-2. And of course, if you couldn't follow that conversation, Matt coached at Troy for 4 years. He's now in his 4th year at Tip. And so it's always going to be a little bit awkward. But I like what he said, Sonny, about when you coach someplace, you leave a piece of your heart behind. And he's right. It does make it more special, I'm sure, for the Troy kids playing against a coach that, that they aspired to play for on the varsity level back when they were playing with his son during their junior high years.
I don't think you can help but leave a piece of your heart at a place like that, which is what makes what happened up at Coldwater last week with Brian Harleman's untimely passing. Their baseball coach there, 51 years old, 5th grade teacher, had been, I think, their baseball coach for 24 years, 25, something like that, almost a quarter century, since 98.
26 years. Yeah.
26 years, 512, 13 wins, something like that. And just a devastating turn of events up there because they've got a great, as you mentioned a few moments ago, they got another great football campaign going on. Mm-hmm. The entire community, it gets so behind their teams up there. They've got such a great legacy and tradition of football success. And then as well as in baseball, they've got 7 titles in football. They got 7 titles in baseball as well, 5 with New Brunswick, and Harley had 2 of his own in 2014 and 2019. And our hearts go out to Trish and the 4 kids, his kids, and that entire community. Because I went to the calling hours yesterday. In Coldwater, stood in line for 3 hours, just literally hundreds of people who stood out in the rain and the wind to pay their respects and to let them know that how special that man was to that community. And a few times in my life, and I've been to lots as you have, we all go through situations like that where you have to go to someone's funeral, and it's a few times in my life have I been moved the way I was yesterday to see that outpouring of love and respect and admiration for that family and his legacy at Coldwater High School. So we wish them the best.
Well, we certainly do, and our we were just all stunned last week when we got that news. And I've been to Coldwater last year. My last trip to Coldwater was for the basketball tournaments early last season in the tournament run. And I just love to spend time looking at trophy cases. And, I obviously had a familiarity with the tradition of Coldwater football because we had covered Coldwater winning a state title up at Paul Brown Tiger Stadium in 2021. And we had, followed the Cavs last year to the state title game that they lost to Cary. And I knew, because you spoke with such great admiration and affinity for Coach Harlemert, that Coldwater baseball had a long history as well. But to look at the trophy case and to see the excellence of the baseball and football programs at Coldwater, and that's a beautiful gymnasium at Coldwater, by the way. It's really beautiful and just a neat town. I got there, and in the daylight hours, I was able to really just enjoy a town a lot like the town that I grew up in. And, we talk a lot here on the show when teams are good that they have the support of the community. But we don't often think about the fact that a high school is a community and a fan base is a community. And it's a community in the grandest sense of that word when something really unforeseen, really tragic, and really terrible happens, like losing Brian at such an early age. And so there are no words that can possibly cover a loss like that. I just, I have such great empathy for the family, for his children, for his wife, for all the people who loved him. And it seems to me that everyone in that community loved him, and across the state of Ohio in the baseball community loved him and had great respect for him. And that was a life cut short, but a life very well lived. As someone said to me in a text when I conveyed my sympathies to them, they said, Brian Harlemert was a Hall of Fame dad, a Hall of Fame husband, and a Hall of Fame coach.
Someone asked me this morning, in fact, his funeral was this morning. I didn't go to that, but I was up there yesterday for the calling hours. And someone asked me this morning in Troy about what made him so special, because they had read the column that we posted last Friday about his passing. And I think, to me, the thing that makes him special is the perspective that he had on winning. Now, we talk about winning here, you and I do, and with some of our guests, about why it's so special and how it benefits kids to have that skill and that knowledge and that experience, how it benefits them the rest of their life. Everything that you gain that's good, that you want in life, you have to win. Mm-hmm. You have to compete for it. You have to put your best effort forward and convince somebody that what you do is better than what somebody else. And that's the reason why they should pick you. But Brian had a particular slickness, if you will. Winning wasn't the only thing in life with him, because he realized you're not going to win all the time. You're going to lose some big games. But he was so adept in creating the advantage, the mental advantage with his kids, that we have we know how to do. We've been here before. We know what our advantages are, and sooner or later, whether it's the first or the seventh inning, or if it goes 12, we're going to pull that advantage. We're going to have one more card than you have. And he and I have talked about that before, about how you create that feeling with the kids. You're never out of a game. If you're down 2 runs in the 6th, don't count yourself out, because all we need is one guy on and one knock, or one guy on and an error. Put the ball in play. Something good is going to happen if you stay the course and you keep competing. He was very, very, very good at that. He believed in that. He played that way, because I've talked to so many people that grew up around him when he was an athlete at Coldwater and the University of Dayton. And he was very slick at convincing and selling that to his kids. All you got to do is just keep playing, and sooner or later, the game's going to break your way. And his team's always played that way against Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy, a team that should have beaten them in the 2014 Division III Finals. They found a way to stay close in that game and give themselves a chance in the later innings. And sure enough, they broke through in the 6th and 7th inning and won that game against a pitcher that I think was a second-round draft choice of the Miami Marlins. So he was very, very good with his kids at giving his kids hope and letting them know that winning is important, but there's a little work to do. There's a little work to do along the way to give yourself that advantage.
Well, exactly. That's where I was going. You know, what you said about his strategy in winning and why he had a belief that his team could win is the same belief that I see in a colleague of his, Chip Otten, the same I see in Tim Goodwin at Marion Local, and Matt Burgbacher at Tip, and all the great coaches, Carlos Siegel at Fort Laramie, on and on and on. Why? Why do they think when they get into a tight game? Why do they have the belief, and why do their teams believe that they will win? Not because it's their destiny, not because it's that fate smiles on them more than another team. It's because they've done the work, and there's no more valuable commodity that you can teach to a young person than that work is its own reward. Doing the work is the reward. Sure, there are good things will result from that work, but the work is the reward, and the work is necessary to go into that. And the concept of delayed gratification, you go to practice today and you do it today and you put everything into today, because at some point 2-3 months down the road in a game, the work you do today is going to make a difference on that play that makes a difference in the season. And you don't just luck into that, you work your way into that. And those are the qualities that I see the great coaches in our area and all areas really ingrain in their teams, is that what can you do today to get better? And he obviously epitomized that. And there are many coaches that we cover that epitomize that. And that's why we have a lot of winning teams and a lot of winning traditions to cover, because we have a lot of coaches who understand that, and they are able to communicate that and get their athletes to understand the value of that.
Lou Holtz used to say for years that rather be lucky than good, but luck is a byproduct of hard work.
Yeah.
The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yep. Very true. Well, let's turn our attention to the games of this week, and the Coldwater Cavs will be on the road at Delphus St. John's. Elsewhere in the MAC, New Bremen is on the road at St. Henry. We have Fort Recovery will be at Marion Local. Anna is at Versailles, and Minster is at Parkway. Then in the TRC, Milton Union is scheduled to play Covington, but I am seeing here on our
that game has been canceled.
That game has been canceled, and someone has been telling me, I have a message here that Covington canceled on Milton Union. This is a message we got from Brian Lucas. Brian says that Milton Union will play Doane Prep right now, and I do not know Doane Prep. What can you tell me about Doane Prep, if anything, Mr.?
I think it's a private school. I know that a couple other teams in the past, over the last couple of years, have played them before. It's not going to be a particular threat, I don't think, to Milton Union. In fact, I think maybe Troy Christian maybe played them last year or the year before. Somebody here in the area has played them, but and unfortunately, we have a question here from the Reader Speaks about Covington football, and we'll address that in a second.
Doane Prep, by the way, according to Max Preps, is 3-1 on the season. Their wins are over Middletown Christian by a 32-0 score, over Cincinnati Landmark, which I do not know them either, 26-12, and 33-6 over Schroeder Padilla Academy. They did lose to Cincinnati Country Day 23-22. So that looks like a game that Milton Union will win comfortably to me, but we shall see.
All righty.
Elsewhere tonight, Josh.
By the way, before we get off the MAC,
yeah,
hey, kudos to you. You mentioned Minster going up to Parkway and playing, and that is a game. That is a game that I'm very interested in this week, and I think it might be one. We haven't been to Parkway in a long time. That might be a game, a very interesting game, because they're 4-2 now. I think is Minster going for their 4th consecutive win with a group of sophomores there that Seth Whiting, played a lot with last year as freshmen, and they have made a tremendous progress this year. They've got some quality wins. They've got some not only quality wins, they haven't won them all, but even the games that they haven't won, they have competed in. They've got a young quarterback there named Brogan Steffi, who's one of those sophomores who has really stepped up this year and showed his propensity to make big plays at big times during the game. And that's a program that is quickly beginning, as like Matt Burbacher said a few minutes ago, to believe in itself, that they're never out of the game. So I'm looking forward to seeing Minster over the next couple of weeks and talking to Seth Whiting and seeing the Brogan Steffi show and everybody around him. So kudos to them at 4-2 now, after I think one of their roughest seasons campaigns last year. They may have only won 1 or 2 games last year. So you can't say enough about kids that come out and believe. The old term about upsets. I've never believed it's an upset if you believe you're good enough to win.
Yeah, we mentioned, of course, Tippecanoe plays out on the road at Troy. Piqua is also like Tip. Piqua is 5-1. The Indians last week were all over Fairborn, 63-0. They hammered Sydney 42-6 the week after their only loss to Xenia. So Xenia has dealt Piqua its only loss, and also has dealt Tip's only loss. Tip and Piqua will play next week, but this week Piqua will be at home against Greenville, and it does not look like the Green Wave will give the Indians much of a game, as Greenville is 1-5 on the season. So the MVL is a league that the 3 teams are clearly the class of the conference, and those 3 teams are Xenia, Piqua, and Tippecanoe, and Piqua has managed to stand in there and weather an injury to Brady Uhl, and we'll see how that works out next week. But Tip has work to do before that, taking on Troy on Friday night. In Central Ohio this week, our headline games appear to be Gahanna Lincoln, which is 5-1, had a big win at over Pick Central a couple weeks ago. Gahanna is playing New Albany. It is technically a home game for Gahanna, but Gahanna's stadium is under construction. They've actually had only 1 game on the Gahanna Lincoln campus this year. So that game against New Albany will be played at Whitehall High School, and we'll be covering that one for you on Friday night. The only unbeaten team in the Ohio Capital Conference, which I think has 34 teams in it, 1 team is unbeaten, and that 1 team is Dublin Jerome. Jerome is on the road on Friday night at Marysville. Marysville is 4-2. Elsewhere in the OCC, a lot of 3-3 teams in the OCC. And Olentangy Liberty 2-4 is at Upper Arlington. Arlington is 5-1. Justin Buttermore's done a nice job there. He also had, like Matt Burgbacher at Tippecanoe, a ton of graduation losses last season off a team that reached the regional finals, but he's built that back up. So those are our headline games from Central Ohio this week.
Good enough. We better take a minute here and dress up some of our sponsors again. Our thanks to Doc's Detailing up in Maria Stein, certainly Layman's, as you like to talk about all the time, old-fashioned country store and hardware. And if you haven't been there, as Bruce talks about all the time, you owe it yourself a trip to Kidron, Ohio. It is an afternoon's delight to walk through that store, Layman's Hardware, there, and see, as we like to say, everything you never knew you needed.
That's right.
They've got it.
And if you're going up to the state football finals, and Coach Burbacher said he's going up because he likes to watch the coaches. If you're going up, you got to think Marion Local will be there. Got to think Coldwater will be there. New Bremen could possibly be there. So I'd get my tickets right now to Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium. And Kidron is 4 miles off Route 30 at Kidron Road. So it's easy to remember, and a great, like a little bit well past halfway point of the trip, but it's a good place to get out, stretch your legs, walk around, and as Sonny said, build in a couple hours there, because you can't really explain to people, how can I kill a couple hours in a hardware store? Trust me, go and you will find out. You will find out how you can, because first of all, they have a cafeteria, a cafe in there. The food's phenomenal. They have ice cream in there. So yeah, browse around Layman's and you'll find plenty of time to stretch your legs on your way to the state football finals. You said you had another Reader Speaks input for us, Mr. Folks.
Well, I've got a received a missive today from Kevin locally here. And Kevin, you know who you are, and appreciate your support of what we do here on Monday nights, and certainly a longtime reader of Press Pros, who wrote and says, "Can you talk about what has happened with Covington football after all those years of 10-0 seasons, all those playoff appearances, all those great football teams? Suddenly, they canceled last week. Now we know that they have canceled this week. They have a dire shortage of available kids there to play. I think at last count, 16, 17, maybe healthy kids. And, what's going on with Covington football, and what do you see in terms of their future?" Kevin, specifically, a lot of people know that I live in Covington. I'm not close to that program right now, and I'm not in a position to say what's going on with Covington football, with the exception of this. Times change. Communities change. The cycle changes. And the cycle, as we talk about so much, deals with, the available athletes. Coaches don't win football games. Athletes do. And I know they've had a couple of small classes there that are going through. I know they had some upperclassmen who played last year who decided not to come back and play this year. I have no reason as to tell you why that happened. It just happened. What I will tell you is, though, that it's happening in other places across the state. It's not just Covington. Bradford has the only win that Covington has this year was sort of a manufactured old-time game with Bradford, just for the sake of let's get together and play football, because Bradford announced early in the year that they would not play a schedule. So it's happened at Bradford, and I can name on both hands to you programs that I know with legacies of football that no longer have a JV team playing this year across the state, and programs across the state. The culture of football, the cycle changes, the communities change. I will say this, from living in Covington, I look at the roster now and I don't even recognize the names of kids that are in the community now compared to when my kids were in school there just a decade or 15 years ago. So Covington's not a town of Kenworthys and Weikerts anymore. I don't recognize some of those towns. The priorities change in some communities. And Bruce, you know this. You go across the state of Ohio and you find towns and communities where something used to be popular. It was the only thing to do on Friday nights or the weekends. It's different there now. I'm not sure that football is the same, has the same priority in some of these communities. You talk about some of those towns where people will say, well, COVID has really hurt our football program here, because for those 2 years, kids who didn't play got out of the habit of football, out of the habit of that work, and it is hard work to play football, have never come back. So when you lose that much of your culture that you would have had in, that decide we're not going to play football anymore, we have a different priority. I got a car, a girlfriend, and a cell phone, and it takes money to run all three. Instead of having 50 kids dressed on Friday night on the sidelines, now some of those same kids are saying, I'd rather have $50 to put gas in my car. So they're working, they're not playing football. That's happening everywhere. That's not just Covington or Bradford or someplace in Southeast Ohio or Northwest Ohio. It's just part of the changing landscape of high school sports.
Yeah, and I think we too have seen, particularly at small schools, because of the proliferation of AAU basketball, of summer baseball, of club soccer, we've seen a specialization at small schools by some athletes in a sport that we didn't used to see. We used to see the kid with 9, 12 varsity letters in a high school career. He'd play 3 sports. He'd double up in one season. That's rare anymore. And football is a tough game. It takes a big time commitment. It is something that, you need numbers, and you need a culture. You need a program. And Covington, nobody can argue with Covington's tradition, but, people move away. Sports fall in and out of favor. I don't really know a reason. I just know Sonny articulated a lot of the reasons, and I tried to add a few more to the list. a lot of times it's just nobody's fault. It just sort of happens. And
Well, the good news is in Covington, I'm told that they have good classes in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, in terms of numbers that are engaged and involved with youth football now. And so that's always an encouraging thing to keep your eye on and for the future. There's always questions about coaching. I don't know. I've met their coach there a couple of times. He had success with Garen Stokes when they were together at Minster. And hey, look, again, I say this, that the greatest thing that you can do as a football coach is convince your kids of the value of hard work, commitment, perseverance, and being a good teammate. So if the numbers are down, when the numbers come back, you just hope that those things catch on, light a fire with some of those kids. It's like Matt Burbacher said, if you treat kids right, if kids come in and they know they're going to have fun, and the prospect for getting to week 7, 8, 9, and 10, the prospect of playing meaningful games, I think that's as much an attractant to kids playing football and to see a cycle turn around for football in any school community as I can think of.
Yep. Well, we invite you to follow us on Instagram. PressProsMagazine is what you search. You can also follow us on Twitter at PressProsMag. Our Facebook page has all of our content on it as well. And we will be back with you on another edition of The Lowdown later on this week, telling you the games that we're going to be covering on Friday night. We had a big volleyball game to cover middle of the week last week, Mr. Folks. Do we have anything on the horizon that we'll be attending this week before we get to the game?
There's a good volleyball game just about every 2 days out of every week when you talk about Division 4 in West Central Ohio, because between Marion and New Bremen, which is the game you talked about last week, which was a fantastic spectator event to watch at Marion High School. But St. Henry is good. Coldwater is good. Out of the Shelby County League, Russia is very good. Warren is very good. I think that Jackson Center team of Kim Metz is beginning to put some things together and make some noise there as well. So when Division 4 volleyball, you can't ask for anything better. It's like the 27 Yankees when you consider the postseason playoff and all the teams right here within a 20-mile drive of each other that are going to be an impact in the postseason. So I don't know that you could possibly even have. And I'll tell you how good it is. Last year's state champion in Division 4 is rebuilding this year at New Knoxville. And, the other schools around have just picked up the slack, and nobody's even worrying about New Knoxville right now. There's so many other teams out there right now who are worthy of the attention, and they're going to make their own case here coming. I think the tournament draws in 2 weeks. So it's coming up quickly here. The postseason is going to be exciting. And it'll be a fight to get to the state finals this year down at Butler High School.
Now, you mentioned the New York Yankees there, and I'm sure that the people know you love the sport of baseball. So I'm curious, Aaron Judge is on the cusp of winning. He didn't hit his 61st home run.
He hasn't hit his 61st time, the Maris number. He hasn't hit 61st that I know of yet. He may hit it tonight. I don't know. But
he's also on track to win the Triple Crown, is he not?
He's on track to win the Triple Crown, which of course
early in my
home runs and RBIs.
Early in my plain dealer days, I did a story on would anyone ever win the Triple Crown again, and this was back in the late 1980s when the candidates to win it were Will Clark and Eric Davis and people like that. Now we got Mike Trout and Aaron Judge. I didn't think would be a guy who could win it based on batting average. I thought he could win home runs and RBIs, which a lot of guys have won home runs and RBIs, but very few guys can get the batting average component. So do you have any love for Aaron Judge being able to win he'd be the first guy to win the Triple Crown since Carl Yastrzemski in 1968.
I think Miguel Cabrera won it a few years ago. You might want to check that.
I missed it.
I think he won that about 3 or 4 years ago for the Detroit Tigers. But it is one of the most rare feats in baseball if you can lead the league in home runs, batting average, and runs batted in. Are you looking that up?
I am. He did indeed.
I'm dying to know now myself, but I think
he did indeed in 2012.
Thank you so much.
Wow, I did not know that.
The one that always sticks out to me, and it was stuck in my craw, was in 60. What was it? 60. 6 when Frank Robinson won the Triple Crown for the Baltimore Orioles the year after the Reds traded him because Bill DeWitt said he was 30 years old and an old 30 at that. And he goes out the next year and leads the American League in home runs, batting average, and runs batted in for the Orioles. That always stuck out in my mind. But you're right, Yastrzemski. It doesn't happen very often. It is very, very elusive feat in baseball.
Miggy Cabrera in 2012 had a .330 batting average, 44 home runs, and 139 RBIs. So there you go. It was
farther back than I believe. I was thinking about 2016, 17, 18, something like that. But
yeah, I checked out a baseball a long time ago.
Anyway,
I'm interested to see if my light-hitting Cleveland Guardians can go anywhere this year in the postseason. Probably not.
You asked, would I like to see it? I would like to see him get the Triple Crown. I don't know if I want to see him break Roger Maris's mark because Roger Maris holds the American League mark for most home runs in a season. Now, Bonds and McGuire were both National League players when they hit their 60s and 70 home runs. So Roger Maris was always a particular fan of mine going back to the 1961 season when he and Mantle had the big race for the home run crown. Mantle hit 54 and he broke Ruth's record that year with 61. So I've always been a Roger Maris fan. I kind of hope he would hang on to that record. I don't know if he will or not. He's got 10 games to do it and he's sitting on 60. So
that record's toast.
Roger Maris might be toast.
By the way, I saw Roger Maris hit a real live home run as a Major League Baseball player.
I think a lot of people did.
Well, but I mean, come on. Did you ever see Roger Maris hit a home run?
I can't remember if I did. I do remember going to Cincinnati one time to watch him when he was traded to the Cardinals.
Yeah, that's where I saw him hit one. I saw him hit one for the St. Louis Cardinals against the Pittsburgh Pirates at Forbes Field. That's where I saw it.
Yeah, I actually walked down there.
Look it up, kids.
Those were the days when you could actually walk down to the railing for the dugout and meet guys and get an autograph or something like that. I wanted to meet him and say something. I looked at him and I kind of got tongue-tied or awestruck, and I think he looked at me and said, "Take a hike, kid.
Get away from me, kid. You bother me."
I got there and I didn't know what to say.
All right. Thankfully, that's not a problem anymore. We wouldn't have any stories
for either one of us. No,
it's not. All right. Well, we appreciate everybody watching the show tonight, watching it on the replay. Tell your friends about it. Matt Burgbacher was great. We knew he would be.
Always is.
Our Greg Billing is going to be covering the Tip Troy game this week. Is that correct?
The Tip Troy game for you on Friday night. I plan at this point. I think my plan is to go to Parkway and do Minster and Parkway, and then of course you'll be involved with your crew in Central Ohio. So it ought to be these next 3 or 4 weeks are going to be can't miss high school football because the matchups are going to be compelling. Certainly Piqua and Troy, or Tip and Troy this week, and then Piqua and Tip next week. And then in the MAC, you have coming up the Coldwater Marion matchup and New Bremen and Coldwater and teams like that. So those are games that are going to create a lot of fascination. And as I mentioned later, a lot of readership and a lot of viewer attention from other parts of the state.
Absolutely right. And we look forward to it. And we've got the playoffs ahead of us. When I start to think about the high school football season being nearly over, I got to remind myself there are 9 weeks left in the high school football season. Those teams that are going to get to the state football championships. And we hope to have several teams there, as we seemingly have every year because of the MAC's historical dominance. And we love it. We look forward to it. Hopefully we'll have a Central Ohio team this year up there as well. And whatever is going on, you'll be able to read about it here on PressProsMagazine.com. Don't forget to thank our sponsors when you're out and about, because they make possible everything that we do. And we appreciate you guys reading loyalty and come up and say hello to us at the games and tell your friends about the Monday Huddle show. And with that, Mr. Folks, would you like to tell your friend Truman it's time to go to bed?
Yeah, Truman knows it's time to go to bed, but I would like to tell a young man named Leighton Smith that I met at the Little Brown Jug last Thursday. He said he would watch us tonight. Leighton, I appreciate your watching us, and thanks for taking care of me at the Jug the other day. I couldn't have gotten around without you.
There you go. Well, thank you, Leighton, and we appreciate all you guys tonight. Have a great rest of your evening, great rest of the week, and we'll see you out and about at the games on Friday night.
Yes, sir.